And we're here, finally. We're live. I'm so sorry, Chris, about the kerfluffle with your
It
live
happens, it's
streaming.
fine.
But everybody, we are here with Christopher Hartland, and I'm so excited to be chatting with him today about Against the Stars, which is this wonderful queer sci-fi book from, I think, the imprint with the coolest name.
I agree, yeah.
When I saw Tiny Ghost, I was like, yeah, that's just a great imprint name for any company. I think it's fantastic. But Christopher, this is your first time here in the nest.
It is, yes. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, of course. For those of us who are meeting you for the first time, myself included, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Christopher Hartland, full name. I'm based in the UK, in West Yorkshire. I'm a writer of queer young adult fiction. Against the Stars is my first ever novel. I'm queer myself. I'm also autistic. I'm a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, musical theatre, and Doctor Who, and that pretty much sums me up.
That's awesome. I used to live in the UK.
Oh.
Not that close to West Yorkshire, but I used to live in Lancashire.
It's close.
It is close-ish, just outside
Next
of
door.
Accrington.
Yeah, I know it.
And I was there for about a decade.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it wasn't I used to live there for 2 weeks, I promise. Like, I properly lived
You truly did. 10 years, yeah.
I feel like I've got the street cred just a little.
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit about D&D and Doctor Who. Are you a D&D
Okay.
player? Are you like
I
in
am,
mid-campaign right now?
Yeah, so I'm in 2 ongoing campaigns.
2? Wow.
And they've both been going for about 3 years now. We started them during lockdown. Yeah, and they've continued. Same characters and everything.
All right, who do you play? Tell us about your character.
So I have in the oldest one, it's a half elf druid called Lorcan, who has been on quite the villain arc. He's in his villain era at the minute. And then in the other campaign, I play a Air Genasi bard called Persephone. But she did just die. But we're hopefully going to bring her back to life. We'll see.
Okay, so your fellow players liked you well enough to help bring back your character. That's nice.
Well, they plan to, yeah. I mean, she's been around a while, so it'd be a shame to see it go. But I'm also very okay with character death if necessary.
That's pretty cold.
It adds to the drama. It adds to the drama.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And Doctor Who?
Yes, I am very excited for this November with the 60th anniversary. I haven't been this excited about the show in a while, so I'm like ready for all the new stuff we're getting.
Now, I'm not a big Doctor Who fan. I'm sorry, but I know Doctor Who. And do you have a favorite Doctor?
Yes, I would. Well, it's a toss-up between David Tennant, who, there's many people's favorite, but I also really like Peter Capaldi, and I think he's the most underrated one. But they're my 2 favorites.
I once engraved a pocket watch for one of the Doctors.
Ooh,
I know,
nice.
and I'm trying to remember which Doctor it is. Is that not the worst?
That's terrible.
I promise I'll figure it out for you. I might not. Hold on. Colin Baker.
Ah, yes. I haven't watched much of his era, but yeah, I know he goes to lots of the events that they do, like Comic-Cons and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what it was. He was in a different film and showed up at my old job because I used to work retail. And I was like, oh, this is a surreal experience. But yeah, that was really cool. This says Mr. Baker on the back of the pocket watch.
That's fun.
In the before 4 times. Far before COVID. And
yeah, back when events were a regular thing.
Yeah, you also have a degree in physics.
I do. Yes, I always forget to mention that because it's like I did a degree in physics and then I was a science teacher, but at the minute I'm a school librarian, so like I feel quite detached from the physics background now. But I do have a physics degree.
Your life just seems like a series of adventures.
Yeah, I just like to change things up once in a while.
You're just vibing through the sciences. You're like, yeah, I'll get a physics degree, be involved in D&D campaigns, and now I'm a school librarian.
Yeah, and writing
That is so
books,
cool.
it's just gotta
And
do lots of different things, you know?
now you've added author to that
I
list.
have. Yes.
Has your degree in physics or your experiences in teaching in science inspired at all the science fiction in Against the Stars?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, so the love of physics came from a love of sci-fi, so it's sort of tied to it. The reason I went into that is because I tend to like, in sci-fi, the more physicsy concepts, like things about time and space and things like that. Um, and working as a teacher, I think working with kids, so I work in high schools, so with teenagers, which are the target audience of, YA. So that's definitely influenced like the voice that I write in when writing these characters. And yeah, and seeing different perspectives of different children from different backgrounds will definitely have influenced Against the Stars, I'm sure.
That's amazing. And would you say that you're more of an analytical planner as an author, or are you a pantser?
Yeah, so I cannot write until I have the full outline. There is room for changes if suddenly I get a new idea midway through, or a character suddenly feels like they need more, or they just grow into something different to what I originally planned. I'll change it, but I like to have a full chapter by chapter outline of the whole book before I even start writing it. Otherwise, I just won't finish it. So yeah, not a pantser at all.
Yeah.
I
And
admire people that can do that though. I think it's impressive, but I cannot.
so do you have like a lot of sheets and things like that that you use to organize your novel and plots?
I tend to do like a list of characters with their descriptions next to it so that I can refer back to that while writing in case I forget, like, oh, what was that character's eye color? Things like that. Um, and then I'll go like general plot outline and then go like each chapter, what's going to happen.
So you're a fan of D&D and Doctor Who. What were your influences in terms of literature? You love
I
to read, basically.
my favorite author is Patrick Ness. I
Oh,
think his
yeah.
books are incredible. Yeah, love them. I love how creative and different every single one of his books are. Like he comes up with such original ideas, and like you never know what you're going to get with him, and they all work in different ways. I also love Adam Silvera and Becky Albertalli. I mean, They Both Die at the End was definitely a big influence here because that's also speculative, also involves like a technology to do with the future. So that definitely influenced me. I like Angie Thomas and Alice Oseman. Yeah, just to name a few. I'm sure there's more, but those would be my like top ones.
That's awesome. I really like Becky Albertalli. I had the opportunity to meet her a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, amazing. I would love to meet her as well. I met Adam Silvera and I've met Patrick Ness, but I haven't met Becky yet. But if she does a UK event, I'll definitely go to it.
I hope she does. I think she's doing more events these days.
Yeah, I'm
Patrick
sure she
Ness, I
will.
would definitely love to kind
Yeah,
of interview.
I met him at the premiere of the Doctor Who spin-off that he wrote, and I had no idea he would be there. And it was like quite a few years ago. I think I was like 18 or 19, and I completely embarrassed myself in front of him because I was like, "Oh my god, Patrick, I love you!" And he tried to have an actual conversation with me, and I was like, ah. Whereas now I feel like if I met him again, I could be more calm and have an actual conversation. So I want to meet him again to be like, "I'm sorry for how I spoke to you last time." Yeah.
It's okay. I totally fan-dayed with Becky Albertalli because I, like, turned around at the event that I was at Y'all West,
Mm.
and she was
And she
standing
was
there,
there. Okay,
and
yeah,
I was
to be,
like,
I would have done the
"Okay,
same.
be normal, no normal was had. There was no normal." It was just completely, "Thank you so much for writing books." Like, and I don't often get a chance to do that, but yeah, that was my embarrassment. It's okay. We'll get
It's
a
normal.
do-over, both of us.
Yeah, yeah, we will.
Um, now that Against the Stars is your debut, have you done anything to celebrate it?
Yeah, so we did two launch events, one just before it officially came out in my hometown of Huddersfield, which is cool because that town has influenced a lot of the setting. And that was just a chance for like all my friends and family nearby to be able to come. But then the London one as well was really cool because it was in a bookshop and the book was in the window, and there were loads of people who I didn't know there. I wasn't expecting all of them to turn up, and we like filled the shop, and I was blown away. Because especially as like it's an indie publisher, I'm fully new. Like this is my first book, so I didn't think anyone would really show up, and I wouldn't have minded if it had just been my friends. But it was very fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. What a cool experience. I hope you got tons of pictures and video.
I got plenty. Yeah, yeah. And the wildest thing was people coming up to me and asking for pictures with me, and I was like, "But I'm just a normal person." I felt like I was getting the experience I had with Patrick Ness, but the other way around. But like, you have not even read my book yet, and yet you're wanting to take pictures with me. That's crazy.
That's awesome. I mean, I would take a picture with you because you'll probably be famous in a few years. And
Well,
that's just
we'll
really
see.
great to have in my phone for clout, right?
True, true, true. Well, we'll see. Screenshot this.
Let's dive a little bit into Against the Stars. As it's a debut novel, can you tell us a little bit about it? Give us your
Yeah,
elevator pitch for your book.
yeah. So Against the Stars is speculative queer young adult romance set in a world where there's this company called Glimpse Tech, which offer all over 16s the chance to have a short vision of the future, a random point in their future. And we followed two characters, Elliot and Seb. Elliot is starting to question his sexuality and decides to have a glimpse and sees himself in an intimate moment with Seb, who he's never really spoken to before. Meanwhile, Seb hates the glimpses because they've torn his family apart. And then it becomes a sort of destiny tying them together. They keep bumping into each other. And meanwhile, in the background, there is some end of the world vibes going on, and people are protesting against this glimpse technology.
I think I would be part of the protest.
Do you?
You managed
Interesting.
to come up with a really terrifying concept.
You see, I've been asked this before, like which side would I be on? And I don't think I could say either way. I definitely would have a glimpse if this technology was available, but I can definitely see the harm it can do.
Would you approach that with excitement, though, having a snippet, a glimpse
Mm,
of the future, or would you approach it with, like, fear?
I feel like it'd be a mix of both. But I wouldn't be able to not. I'd just be too curious, and I'd probably regret it afterwards. But I would have to have one.
And then that throws into so many other questions that I have actually written down for you, because just the mere concept brings in much bigger questions, but, um, more importantly, I wanted to know what inspired the idea of building the Glimpse being a corporate entity. What
Mm.
inspired that part of your story?
Yeah,
Or is it social
that's
media in
yeah.
general, really?
I think I just sort of well, it started with the idea of just what if people were able to have a vision of the future.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously you can go many different directions with that. But I think maybe the reason I thought if to have it be like a corporation would be to have it be a choice as to whether you get one. And I wanted the two main characters to have a very different perspective on it. And for one to, want to have one and the other to hate it, I feel like in order to hate it, it would have to be some big thing where you don't have to get it, um, but it has a lot of influence over everyone across the world. So I think that's probably where that idea came from. And in terms of like the protests against it, I did write this during lockdown, so I imagine a lot of like the chaos around that probably had an influence.
And who do you think would be most likely right now, given our corporate overlords, to develop this technology? Like, if we
Oh,
lined
good
up
question.
all the people responsible for social media,
Mm.
I think it's
Yeah, I
Zuckerberg,
feel like
without a doubt.
it'd be part of Meta, wouldn't it? It'd be part of the metaverse. You'd like be able to walk into a future vision in the whole
You probably have,
virtual
like,
reality
a
thing he's doing.
subscription service.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I never really go into in the book, but in my mind, I think in the UK at least, it's funded by the government, like our health services. I don't know how
The
different countries approach
NHS
it.
is
I think it
responsible
would
for this?
be,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
but don't quite because I haven't thought that fully through. But I think that is what is funding it in the UK at least. It
I
would
think that
I
could
maybe it
happen.
wouldn't have started out that. This is stuff I could explore in a different book.
Well,
I
it's
think.
true though, because
Yeah.
technically the NHS really needs funding. putting together a subscription service. You're right. It could be the government. Very
Mm.
1984. Now, if well, you've already said that you would take a glimpse into your own future. Here's an even harder question. What would you hope to see?
Ooh. Well, I would hope to see like the dream I feel like of most people who write books is to have writing be their full-time career. So I would hope to see myself being able to do that. Um, but I think that most people would actually see themselves doing something very mundane. I think what I'd actually see would be like me at the supermarket buying some food, um, or just sat at home or asleep or something. But I would want to see, one of my dreams coming true, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, just to take it to a less fun atmosphere with the next question, um, mental health and generational trauma, especially with Seb, are two intertwined aspects of the story. Was it important to you to include these struggles so apparently to your readers?
Yeah, I think, it's such I mean, it's always been an issue, obviously, but particularly recently, particularly after the lockdowns and everything, it really made everyone so much more aware of mental health struggles. Um, and, working in schools, I've seen how it affects children from vast different backgrounds, and particularly how it can hugely impact people from lower classes, people who have less money. And that's definitely what influenced Seb's storyline. And I think it's just important, the purpose of fiction, I think, isn't, well, part of it is escapism, but also part of it is to shine a light on real world issues through a fictional lens. Um, so it wasn't the first thing I came up with, but it was very early on that I thought of that, element to it, because I think it's really important. It's something I care about a lot. Um, so I wanted to include it.
And you are a school librarian.
I am, yes.
So you're involved with young readers every single day of your professional life.
Every day, yeah, yeah.
Does that must influence your writing in terms of what you feel you should include in books?
100%, yeah, because I see, kids coming in. When I started the job, the library didn't have much queer fiction, and my first thing when I came in was, let's order all of these queer books. And that then had a huge wave of children coming in for those, and those children have stayed coming in consistently since I started. It's been 3 years now that I've had that job. So yeah, and obviously in other communities as well. I think fiction can have such a powerful impact for children that don't see themselves anywhere else.
That's amazing. Recently, I was involved with another project and I was speaking with somebody about the catalog before they took over in their position had such old volumes. And while some of the books, would have been good and relevant to us at our
Mm.
age, they didn't have updated collections. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you curate your collection for your work?
Yeah, so I just sort of, being a writer, I end up seeing a lot of other writers, and I'm very aware of like the current trends in books anyway. I keep up to date with things like Book Talk because that's had such a huge impact, especially with YA. I'll take recommendations from kids themselves. I'll see things trending on bookshop websites, or what's winning awards, or what's just trending on Book Talk, and try and get a lot of those in. But yeah, you're right. Like when I started, there was so much stuff that you can tell when you read YA, especially, that was written quite a while ago. Just the way teenagers speak is not the same anymore, and a lot of that fiction, then when they read it, they just get bored because they're like, well, this just isn't realistic. Not that it has to be, if it's fantasy or something, but just it doesn't feel worth reading because they can't relate to them at all. Um, so I think it's really important for libraries to, especially children's sections, to keep up to date, because the times are changing. And kids are not always going to be the same as they always have been.
And have you seen an increase in readership since the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I was not. I was a science teacher up to when the pandemic happened, and then changed to librarian after it. So I didn't see the change, But I've definitely, outside of the job, seen how much, like, especially physical books, I think have had a huge uptake because of things like Book Talk. Like, the power that has is absolutely astounding. We can talk about, all the harm that TikTok can do, but it's had such a positive as well, and other social medias as well, like Instagram. It really is fueling the world of publishing and there's some harmful ways that it does it, but I think that the increasing reading physical books is only a positive thing.
I completely agree as well. And in your book, Elliot and Seb, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the dynamic that they have, which is phenomenal. And each of them have a very unique personality and history, which creates a lot of camaraderie and conflict. But can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration for your main characters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Elliot is definitely heavily influenced by my own background. Like, through childhood, I wasn't ever in a position of like worrying about money. I never had to experience that, luckily. And so, growing up, I was in that position of privilege and did not acknowledge it for a very long time. And then once, making friends in different communities, that really, opened my eyes. And over the last few years, especially, so many things have come to light. And so that's where, I started the story with the idea of Elliot, having this glimpse and that, and him questioning his sexuality and it being a coming out journey for him. So starting with him, I was putting in elements of myself. He's not a complete author insert, but there's definitely influences there. And then with Seb, what I wanted was someone very different, them to still have things to bond over, but someone to open Elliot's eyes to how privileged he is and to also bring him out of his shell and show him new experiences. So I wanted them, and in order for the conflict, they had to have differing opinions. So it started with Elliot, and then Seb sort of, came out of just that idea of there being some tension between them. And obviously, like I said, working in schools, I've seen such a range of children from different backgrounds. So a lot of that, when you work in schools, you get trained on everything. So I've been very aware of like how big the struggles can be for certain people. And in the UK, like we're in the midst of like a cost of living crisis and everything. So there's poverty is a much more visible thing. And so a lot of, just awareness of that went into influencing Seb's character.
And was it your experience as a teacher then that threw your life of privilege kind of into focus?
I think that, and also friends that I have like are from quite a broad range of backgrounds, but teaching is definitely quite a large bit, because I'm working in schools every single day, so that's, I see it all the time. So that definitely is one of the big things. So yeah, I would say working in schools and also the friends I've made.
That's probably a really lovely and probably heartbreaking view, I guess, into
Oh yeah, for
humanity.
sure. Yeah,
And I
but
can
it's nice to
definitely tell
be
that it's
the positive
influenced the
influence
novel.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why in your story did you want to have your glimpses be so short? And how do you think it lended to the story overall? Besides being a little frustrating for everyone.
Well, that we need that because it's just enjoyable to be frustrated sometimes with the story. But I think the key thing was to have that level of uncertainty. There's a really key moment so we have the whole setup of whatever you see is guaranteed to happen no matter what. And I think that ideas like that are most interesting when there's ample opportunity for misunderstanding. And the less they see, the less they're going to be able to work out about what's really going on. And there's a key moment after they experience what Elliot has seen in real life where he realizes, oh, everything from here onwards is completely new and I don't know what's going to happen anymore. And that's quite scary. And if if the glimpses had been longer, or if you were able to get multiple glimpses, that whole element of it is sort of lost. So I wanted to have it be short, and also for you to only be allowed to have one.
It's a tease.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I would be in Team No Glimpses.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, well, like I said, I can see both sides. Which, I mean, obviously, that's the whole point of the book, but
I know, right?
yeah,
Sorry.
I can see both sides because I made both sides, but yeah.
Do you feel that glimpses then take away free will?
I would say that, I mean, because it's established that whatever you see will happen no matter what,
Mhm.
you could argue that during that moment that you've seen, once you reach that, you could argue that your free will is gone because you've seen it and you knew it was going to happen, and then you end up doing exactly what you saw. Um, but everything leading up to that, it doesn't take away from that. Um, but then also you could say that whatever you do is going to lead to that. So does that take away free will? So I think it does take away something, but it doesn't completely take away all your free will. But I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't think there's a solid answer I can give to that one.
That's okay. Um, let's get even deeper into your novel. Is that okay? Let's talk
Yeah.
about bisexuality,
Hmm.
which I love to see represented here, especially in male characters. It's underrepresented in YA significantly.
100%. Yeah.
And I feel that it's so important for everybody to be able to see themselves in a book.
Hmm.
Loved the inclusion. Is that why you chose to explore Elliot's character profile in that way? That you
Yeah, I
wanted
just
the representation?
it's the journey that I went through.
Mhm.
Bisexual is one. I use queer mostly, but bisexual is one of the labels that I do use, and was the label I first came to and first like adopted. After much longer than it takes Seb. I mean Elliot. Um, so I wanted to tell a bisexual story as a bisexual writer. Um, and yet, like you say, it's very underrepresented, especially for boys. Um, but I think it adds an extra layer of confusion, with the coming out journey because he's also attracted to girls. He's like, well, maybe I'm just fooling myself. Then I can't be gay. I'm definitely attracted to girls, aren't I? And then all the doubt with that, like, am I really attracted to girls, or have I just convinced myself I am? Um, I think it's frustrating that it's so underrepresented because I think there's so many interesting stories to tell with it. Um, it's I don't think we have enough gay coming out stories, but I think bisexual coming out stories we have even fewer. So yeah, it was always clear to me from the off that that would be the story I'd be telling. And with Seb being out as gay already was also important to have Callum encounter someone who was very proud of his sexuality and not closeted at all, and who could show him, how that life can be.
Yeah, I agree. As somebody who is somewhere along the rainbow spectrum myself, it's
Hmm.
it's it's very important, I think, for us to have stories for adults and for teens and for kids, just showing that it really is a journey.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
Yeah,
part
it's
of the
okay to be.
journey too.
He doesn't find that label straight away, and even when
Mhm.
he finds it, he doesn't accept it straight away, and that's okay. It's part of the journey of figuring out what works for you.
Yeah, I can only actually think of a couple of others that have bisexuality rep that are popular. I think Albertelli is one of them.
Hmm.
Did Adam?
Excellent, one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he is. Um, in I'm forgetting. They both die at the end. One of them is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yes, because he has an ex girlfriend. Um, yeah.
We love secondary characters as well, and you have a
Yes.
novel full of them. I have a couple of questions for you. Firstly, do you have a favorite, and were any of them based on any real life friends?
I think, oh, well, okay, favorite. It's hard to pick. I mean, everyone who has read it so far really loves AIM. That's always the first thing they say to me. They think AIM is really amazing, which is great to see because, that's what I wanted in her. Um, but I also really like Callum because I think it's important to see straight ally characters who are supportive and who, you know, don't ever run away from it all and don't ruin everything. Um, Obviously, I think queer representation is the most important, but allyship is a very powerful tool as well. And so it was important to me to have Callum there as well. So I think, I don't know, Callum and Aim are both, I love them both, and I'm not going to pick, but those two for sure. And in terms of if they were influenced by anyone, I think they both have elements of lots of my friends. I have lots of trans friends, and a lot of that went into the representation for AIM. I had the first person to read it is one of my trans friends, and that helped make sure, is this representation accurate? And with Callum, like I do have multiple straight ally friends who are very, very good allies and very supportive. So those two are definitely like a blend of elements of different friends that I have.
And I appreciated both, but with Callum especially, I think it's great when a well-written male ally is in a story.
Yeah.
Because it's also like a really great representation for straight kids who might be picking up the novel.
Yeah, especially with Callum, with Elliot having a crush on Callum, that's ample opportunity for awkwardness, and if that happens in real life, often that can ruin a friendship. Whereas what I want to do was show that it doesn't have to ruin their friendship, because Elliot will move on from this crush, and their friendship doesn't need to be ruined because of it.
And I've been there.
Haven't we all?
What do you hope your readers take away from Against the Stars?
I think the key message I wanted to get across was the idea of hope, and that no matter how much hardship you go through, there's always hope in the end, and that love is the most powerful tool. Not necessarily romantic love. Platonic love is just as important, if not more. So yeah, I guess the idea of hope in the face of horror, which I think is very pertinent at the minute. There's all sorts going on, and we need hope. So that is what I want to leave readers with.
Yeah, it is a very, very difficult time right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky to be in Canada. I think you feel much the same way.
Yeah.
And with June fast approaching, and for everybody who's watching now or catching the replay or on YouTube, do you have any advice for aspiring queer authors on how to get their stories into the world? Because we need them.
Mm-hmm. I think the key thing is to, never hold back from writing queer stories, because obviously, it feels like the world's against us hugely at the minute with book bans and everything, but there will always be an audience who need these books. So don't let that stop you from writing that story. And I think the main thing in terms of trying to get it out there and trying to get it published is looking for people who will fight that battle for you. So the beautiful thing with Tiny Ghost Press is the fact that they only publish queer fiction, they only publish YA. So I knew when I found them that it would be a safe home and a really good home for Against the Stars. So, if you're looking for agents, check, that they either have represented queer fiction before or have clearly been supportive of it, and, maybe listed it in their things that they want to represent. Or with publishers, with indie publishers, try and find one that is representing queer fiction, because they do exist. Yeah.
That's actually really excellent advice.
Thank you.
I haven't heard very much advice from authors before about how to approach, like, specifically folks who have worked with, the demographics for your book previously.
Yeah.
So that is
I think also if you have favorite authors who write similar things to you, the advice I always see and that I would say to you is see who represents them, see what publishers or agents they went to, and even if you don't end up going with them, see who they're promoting. There's a whole web of people out there.
And where can readers get your book, and can they get signed copies? I have one reader specifically who collects signed copies of our authors' books.
So you can get it, you should be able to get it anywhere the books are sold. I would always recommend asking your local indie bookstore, um, because they're the ones that need the most support. Um, and you can also get it directly from the publisher, as well as actually merchandise related to the book on the Tiny Ghost website. So there are t-shirts and tote bags and things with things like the cover on or the symbols that are in the book. If you truly love it that much, you can buy that stuff too. Signed copies. I don't know if we'll be selling those. If we sell them on the Tiny Ghost website at some point, then they'll be on there. Um, we did book plates at one point. I signed some book plates for a pre-order campaign, so we could do that in future. Or I mean, if you're in the UK, then I will hopefully do more signings in places. I did them at the launch events, but we'll see if anything else happens. I guess if you follow me on my socials, you'll be able to see if that's happening anywhere. But yeah.
Where can we find you on social media?
Instagram at Christopher Hartland, all one word. Hartland with Hartland. Some people spell it with an E by accident. So at Christopher Hartland on Instagram, or at C Hartland Writer on Twitter, because Christopher Hartland was too long for Twitter.
Are you most active on Bookstagram?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Twitter is quite the place at the minute. I only recently joined, and it seemed like a terrible time to join it. So I'm on there, but I'm definitely much more active on Instagram. So yes, that is the best place to find me. But Twitter is there if you are still suffering through that app.
You're still suffering through that. Do you ever think that sometimes folks are still just on Twitter just to watch it all go down in real time?
Oh, for sure. I mean, this last week on there in the writing world has been wild. I don't know if you've seen literary agent discourse that's been happening. It's a wild time on Twitter, but yeah. I think definitely some people are just there to watch it
So
burn.
I have this
But yeah.
theory that bookish drama happens every 4 months.
Ooh. Have you been like making a graph?
Yeah, but usually it's at the first or last of the month. So it's either like the first or the second, or like the 27th or the 28th. I promise you, it's a
Interesting.
pattern.
Okay, well, we're coming up soon to the end of this. I will keep an eye out when we get to the end of May, see if anything new happens.
So aside from Against the Stars, are you working on anything else currently? Can you tell us about another project?
Yes.
Very cool.
So there's nothing like signed and definitely happening, but I am working on things. So at the minute I'm writing I mean they'll always be queer. You can trust that. But I'm writing a romance that doesn't have any speculative elements, which is quite unusual for me. It's set much in the real world. And it also has, as well as being queer, the main character is autistic because I was diagnosed as autistic after writing Against the Stars. So that's been like a new realization and a new thing to explore through writing. I think there's probably autistic elements in the character of Elliot in Against the Stars. Reading it back, I'm like, maybe he is, but that wasn't done intentionally. Whereas with this book I'm writing at the minute, and hopefully other books as well, I'm adding that in there, which has been really fun. And this current book also involves the fake dating trope, which I find very fun. But there are also other ideas floating around, and I might try and write two things at the same time, but I don't know if I can do that, but I might try because there are other ideas that like are demanding to be written. So hopefully sooner rather than later, one of those will surface too. But yeah, I mean, I'll post on social media whenever all of that happens. But fingers
And do you
crossed.
think you're going to stay within YA?
Yes, all my solid ideas, which I have a few of, are YA. It's the genre I feel most comfortable in. I wouldn't say I'll stay there forever. Well, I mean, I think I'll always write YA, but I could also branch out as well as that at some point because I have a couple of like beginnings of ideas that could be adult or middle grade. But we'll see. We'll see if I go with those. But YA is definitely like my comfortable place for
Let me
now.
guess. 200,000 page space opera.
Well, there is like a hard sci-fi concept that's very influenced by like the physics degree and that I think would suit adult more than YA that could happen. But yeah, we'll see.
Oh, please write that. I'm a huge fan of, like, very well-researched space operas.
I will try.
I I love to hear about how faster than light travel is not possible. So
Sorry, I love a good relativity. So my favorite film of all time is Interstellar for this reason.
I
I
love Interstellar.
It's so good.
It's
It's so
so
good.
good and heartbreaking.
Oh, absolutely. That's
I
why I love
almost
it.
completely just spoiled the ending for everybody watching because I was like, because it was
Yeah, don't.
the perfect segue from what we were just talking about. But yeah,
It is
that
excellent.
film correctly explores faster than light
Yes.
travel.
Yeah, and the black hole is like so accurate. It's yeah, amazing.
Christopher, once again, so sorry for starting late, but thank you for hanging out with me. I know it's evening over there in the UK.
Oh, it's fine. I'm more of an evening person anyway. Yeah, thank you for
That's
having
probably
me.
where you get why you get all your writing done.
This is true. Yeah.
It's but yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody on the Nest. This chat will be available for replay under the past author chats and live streams folder, and soon it'll be on YouTube, which is cool too. Christopher, thank you. I hope you'll come back and chat with
Thank you.
me about your next
Oh,
novel.
for sure. Yes, please
Awesome.
have me back.
Thank you to everybody who's watching. Our next author chat is happening Friday, May 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. And I will be going live with Amy Kaufman about her latest novel, The Isles of the Gods. And that's going to be a blast. It's always fun chatting with Amy. For now, we're going to say bye. But Christopher will be
Bye.
back to talk about his next novel. And I hope everybody has a great evening, afternoon, or morning, no matter where you are in the world.